Hi, I'm Dana. For anyone new, one of my biggest special interests is like movies and TV shows. I really love like visual media, and as such, I watch a lot of stuff. And this year, I've started like actually making a note of the things that I watch because I am a serial offender for being like, oh my god, I haven't seen that, and then being like 3 episodes in and being like, oh, I have seen this. I actually remember every part of it now. So just for like my own little autistic head, I've started keeping note of it. And today's the last day of January as I film this, and I've had the idea of like I could do each month all the things I watched that month and talk about whether or not I liked them and like keep track of it both for myself while also like sharing things I enjoyed and things I didn't enjoy with you guys. I think it can be fun. And also I've started like doodling on this little notebook. So if anyone has any like ideas for other really easy doodles, because I'm not very good at drawing, I do want to like completely fill it up and I think it'll be really cute. But getting into why we're here, these are the movies and TV shows I've watched this year. With TV shows, because I feel like I have less to say about them, so we can get through them kind of quickly and then go on to the movies where I have like thoughts and opinions. But I will be sharing thoughts and opinions about all of these and also how they connect in my like little autistic brain, because a lot of things connect for me. So the first thing is the Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose. I just got real caught up in all of that stuff happening. When my mental health like plummets and I'm really not doing well, I watch a lot of true crime content. It's not healthy and it's not good. I don't really think that that type of content as a whole should exist, but it does, and I've engaged with it. So I was very aware and like quite knowledgeable about the whole case surrounding Gypsy Rose, and I wasn't excited for her to get out of prison, and then everyone else started being, and then I got like hyped up and engaged with it all and was like, yeah. But I actually think that people should really just be left alone once they're out of prison. Like, yes, she committed a crime, she did her time, leave her alone now. Bit weird. I felt very uncomfortable watching it. I won't be watching it again. I wouldn't honestly recommend it. Then I watched Jack of All Trades and it was fucking fantastic. This is one of my favourite things I've ever watched. There's only one season. It's like an American Kiwi production, like between America and New Zealand, and it's from 2000. It's just hilarious. It's just such good fun, you know, like genuinely just like good wholesome family fun. I mean, there are a lot of like innuendos and sex things as well, because you really want the two main characters to fuck. Really wanted it. But it also like, it feels like the exact kind of thing you'd watch as a kid in the noughties, where like all of the like innuendo and everything just goes straight over your head and you'd be like giggling at the silly little like visual jokes that they're doing. Like genuinely just like not exactly well made, but that adds to the charm of it, you know? Incredibly well written, really well cast, like really, really good actors in it. I really enjoyed their performances, all genuinely hilarious. And like some of it's so subtle and some of it's done like so in your face with such a like, I don't know, I can't describe it. It's just very, very silly and I really, really loved it. Then I watched Creamery. I started this month in like a big New Zealand phase. So Creamery's another Kiwi show where like a virus type thing happens that kills all the men on earth, and you have this like feminine utopia, but then they find that there are actually a bunch of men that are still going, like not a bunch but like some of them. It was very, I really enjoy shows that are able to do like a sort of social commentary and make a point and say things about the society that we live in while also being funny and light-hearted and not getting you down about it, you know? Like you notice it, you unpack it, you think about it, but you don't have to just focus on the horrible things because 2 seconds later there's a really funny joke or whatever else. And again, this is something where the cast, I don't want to say the cast really carried it because it was well written as well and it's a really interesting concept, and there's like 3 seasons. I think there's going to be more, so I don't want to say the cast carried it per se, because I do think that all of it was like very, very good, but the cast especially are just so charming and instantly likable. And just like even the main man that's in it, I wasn't expecting to like, because he's quite like a rugged, gruff sort of like manly man. You just end up falling in love. They're all just such like likable characters and likable actors. Like I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of the show. I then watched Double Parked because it had the person that plays Archie in Our Flag Means Death in it. It's about 2, again, Kiwi women who are trying to have a baby and things go wrong essentially and they both end up pregnant at the same time. I didn't like the way it ended, but the rest of it is a really funny and like cute show. It's very sort of like average standard sitcom, but it's queer, so at least we get a bit of representation. It's honestly not the kind of thing I would usually watch. It's not exactly my type of thing. I enjoyed it enough, And I like that we're getting like queer representation in a genre where I don't feel like we see an awful lot of it. So I'm like entirely behind it, but I also, it wasn't for me, you know? Then I watched After the Flood, and I was expecting to like this less than I did, because I always think that I'm not necessarily like a heavy drama person, but you're gonna see here that I kind of am. So After the Flood is about Sophie Rundle who played Alice. No, she didn't play Alice. She played Anne Walker in Gentleman Jack. And it also had Philip Glenister in, which was why I watched it. I love Philip Glenister. So Sophie Rundle is a pregnant police officer, and she finds a dead body in a lift after a flood. But then it turns out that like he shouldn't be there, and there's all sorts going on, and it's a whole murder mystery. I'm not going to spoil it, but it went in some directions that I didn't feel like it needed to, just to fill out time when they could have done more with it. And it was quite depressing, honestly, for the most part. Like, it really was just like a straight drama. Like, it was not a comedy drama or anything. It was very straight. And again, it's not necessarily always my type of thing, but for what it was, I thought it was really good. I did enjoy it. Then I watched Queen of Oz, and this is one that I was like 5 episodes in when I was like, I've watched this before, but now I've made a note of it and I'm talking about it, I'll remember that I've actually watched it. So Catherine Tate plays a sort of like ballsy, slightly just like annoying, entitled princess who gets sent to Australia to like win over the Australian people. And I won't lie to you, I didn't think it was very good. A lot of the jokes were quite fat shamey in some episodes. There was a whole episode about like her childhood trauma of bullying that just like ranked way too close to mine to be actually remotely funny. And I also just honestly am not the biggest fan of Catherine Tate, honestly. I think she's often thrown into things because they're like, she can carry the cast, and she kind of can't carry the whole cast on her own. And that's very much what she was trying to do here for the most part, apart from that like one guy. The guy that plays the security guard was also fantastic, but everyone else I kind of just like really hated, honestly. And even the character that Catherine Tate plays I absolutely despised, but it wasn't as bad because I do like Catherine Tate. Some parts were really funny, like there was the odd joke in it that did like absolutely crack me, but it was like 1 every 3 episodes, you know. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch this again, and I understand why I found it so forgettable the first time. I then watched There She Goes, because I know that I watched like maybe the first like 3 or 4 episodes at some point, but there's the bath time one where like they're just really struggling. There She Goes is about a little girl called Rosie who has learning difficulties, and they originally don't know what it is, and then it's diagnosed as, is it DIRC 1A? It's a chromosomal disorder that has like autistic type traits. So she's seen as having some sort of autism for like a good chunk of the show. And it also has David Tennant and Jessica Haynes as her parents, and they're both actors that I adore, so I was definitely going to watch it. And it was a really like nice, heartfelt show. I feel like there were some parts that were kind of gross, honestly, where they were talking about having a disabled daughter and struggling to like live with disability as a part of the family. And it's one of those things where it was difficult to watch and difficult to hear, and like, especially like with my own upbringing and everything, some of it was real tough. But I do also think that it's all in there because that is the learning curve that a lot of parents in those types of situations have to go on. You know, a lot of people aren't used to having any sort of disability in their lives, and it is difficult to accept and to deal with. And especially when you're then the sole caregiver to a child who has those types of needs. You know, I think it was a very real portrayal of that type of situation, done very, I don't want to say tastefully. It's not done like tastefully. It's done in a way where like you can tell that there's no malice, you know? Like, I'm pretty sure that the writer has a child that has the same chromosomal disorder, and it's like sort of based on that. I think you'd have to Google it, but like you can tell that it's been done out of like love and care and genuine understanding, and not just like, we're going to make a thing about someone with learning difficulties, you know? Like, it's not just like a cash grab of some sorts or whatever. Not that it'd be a cash grab, but you know what I mean when people just like make things because they're like, people will watch this and praise me. After that I watched Brassic, and I don't know why I haven't watched it before, to be completely honest with you. I love Joe Gilgun that's in it. I've watched like Misfits and Preacher and This Is England and other things that he's done and really loved them. So it took a friend like prompting me to watch it, but I did watch the entire show in like 3 days. I've watched all of these shows in like less than a day, some of them. But yeah, I loved it, absolutely adored it. It's funny, it's super British, it feels very working class. Joe Gilgun's always fantastic. There's his representation of mental health and dealing with bipolar disorder was really nice. Like, it's just, I really enjoy the types of British shows like that and Shameless and those like sort of breed of shows where they touch on the really serious things and they have like this really great portrayal of just general life, you know? I really enjoy that kind of thing because it's the type of thing where like there's so many parts that you can relate to as a working class like British person where I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. But then there's also the moments where like really funny things happen to them and really great things happen to them, and it just feels like it gets like a more balanced approach to things, and it makes me feel better about life, to be honest with you. Then I watched Deadwater Fell because There She Goes got me back onto my little David Tennant thing. I watched this like 2 days ago and I'm already kind of struggling to remember it. Oh no, it's back. David Tennant murders his wife and kids. Complete spoiler, but I felt like it was very obvious from like the very start. Like that's the thing with a lot of like crime dramas, is that I start watching them and I'm like, and everyone's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, it was really obvious that it was this person, and then it is, and everyone's like, whoa, what a plot twist, and I'm like, so that was how I felt about that. Then I watched Des, and similarly with the Gypsy Rose thing, like it's about Dennis Nielsen, the serial killer. I really don't know how I feel about true crime being dramatised. Like I watched it because David Tennant was in it and I want to have watched everything David Tennant's done, because I had at one point watched everything David Tennant's done and I've slipped. I fell off the track. I didn't do well enough. So I want to get back into having done that. But I feel so icky watching anything based on true crime, you know? Like, it just doesn't feel respectful or right to the people that have been literally murdered, you know? Like, when people talk about this, they're talking about it as a TV show because it is a TV show. But the things that happened on a fucking TV show, people were literally murdered and now they're just a bit of entertainment, even in death. I don't like it, it grosses me out a bit, but it was, a well-made show. I'll give it that. And then finally for shows, I watched Inside Man, and this one I loved. It's Stanley Tucci is the death row detective. He's a dude that murdered his wife and beheaded her and now like takes cases on from behind bars to help people, like to do like a moral fulfillment type thing. And Lydia West is a journalist that's been speaking to him, but someone else that she knows, Janice, has had a whole thing go on with David Tennant and she ends up in the basement. It's a whole thing. I don't want to spoil it. I was going to say I don't want to spoil it too much and then continue to go on and spoil it. But I would actually heavily recommend Inside Man. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It's a great show. It is a great plot. It had an actual plot twist for me. There were things I actually was not expecting to happen. Genuinely interesting. Genuinely just really grips you and pulls you in, and you it's so tense, but not in like watching The US Office made me feel really tense and horrible from all the secondhand embarrassment, and it's not that type of thing, but it's the tense of oh god. And the best I can compare it to actually is another Stanley Tucci film, The Lovely Bones, because Peter Jackson fan, that's the only reason I know who Stanley Tucci is. But when Susie's sister's gone into his house to get the book where he's got her fucking hair and bollocks, and he's gonna catch her and you're so tense, it's that kind of thing for the entire show, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good. Okay, so on to movies. The first movie that I watched was The Justice of Bunny King. Again, this was my little New Zealand kick at the start of the year. So this is about a Kiwi lady who's also a mum, and she's just sort of trying to do her best, she's just doing her fucking best, and it feels like every time she does something that should help, it just makes everything so much worse. But she's got a little heart of gold and she's lovely and she's just doing her goddamn best, okay? Then I watched The Deadlands because there's a TV show of it, and I was like, I do have a history of watching a weird little Kiwi movie and then being obsessed with the TV show, but I currently barely remember the fucking movie. I remember watching it and just having my attention just stray away and just daydreaming in my little head because it just wasn't that good. I'm sorry. Then I got sick, so I watched Drop Dead Fred because that's what I watch when I'm not feeling good, and it's always perfect. I would heavily recommend that everybody watch Drop Dead Fred. Then I watched, I'm gonna say it's pronounced Fina because that was what they called it in the movie, but it's spelt Whina. But it's based on the true story of a lady who was very prominent in the movement for Maori people having actual rights and being treated as people in New Zealand. And I can't explain it well because I'm scared I'm gonna say the wrong thing and sound like an absolute idiot, because I am an absolute idiot. But I do feel like I actually learned something from it, and it was actually a very interesting, very uplifting film, and I really like media that's movies and TV shows I say media and it just sounds so vast, and like I mean movies and TV shows that actually like try to educate in a way where like it doesn't feel like you're being educated, you know. It's not like you're watching a documentary, you're watching this story and being drawn in by these characters and all the emotions to it, but it's also leaving an impact on you and having you know more about something than you did before and having like lessened your ignorance around it, you know. So I really enjoyed that. Then I watched Nightmare Radio The Night Stalker, which is just another Kiwi horror film. It sucked. It absolutely sucked. I paid attention to it because I kept expecting it to like go somewhere, and it just never did. It never got good. Most of the characters are very annoying. It's just all very cliche and not very good. I really wouldn't bother watching it. Then I watched Saltburn. I fucking hated Saltburn. I hate that it felt like so many scenes felt incredibly unnecessary and just a bit dumb, honestly. Like, I know that they've gone for like shock factor and getting people to talk about it, but it just wasn't fucking good, you know. And I've seen people now as well trying to like explain his accent as being like, oh well, he's trying to sound posher in these situations and more working class in these situations. He doesn't sound working class for a fucking moment of the fucking movie. He don't sound Scouse for a second. But like, there's just so many things that I've seen people say about the movie where I'm like, that is such a cool concept. It wasn't in the film. Like, you have come up with this concept, like so many TikToks that I've seen, I'm like, you bitch, you have come up with this concept yourself. And it's so smart and it's so great, but it literally was not in the movie. The people that made this movie did not think that deeply into it. I'm sorry, they just didn't. It's not there. I really, really didn't like this movie. I then watched Priscilla, which I also didn't like very much, but not because of like the movie, you know. I was a big Elvis fan as a teenager, and then I started to just sort of get the ick from him as I like found out more about him and read more about him, and I haven't paid any attention to Elvis in many years at this point. And I was like, I really never knew anything about Priscilla. I don't like their whole relationship and everything. Like, I've seen their wedding pictures and that's about it. And it was one of those things that was just a really hard watch and wasn't very nice, and I didn't really enjoy it. The scene where she finally drives away was the best scene of the movie, and I do think it was the last one. You know, like, it was a very pretty movie, it was a very well made movie. It wasn't a nice movie to watch. I didn't enjoy watching it. Then I watched Mega Time Squad, which was another Kiwi film, and I expected it to be really good, but it was just really messy and kind of felt like it just wanted to be Pineapple Express but wasn't. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then in mid-January, I finally got around to watching Happiest Season because it's Kristen Stewart and the girl that played Yorkie in Black Mirror being gay together. And it wasn't a good movie. It wasn't a well-written movie. Some of the acting isn't particularly good, and I loved every moment of it, and I will be adding that to like my Christmas rotation movies. We need more gay Christmas films, and I'm supporting what we've got, but also please make me some better ones. Then I decided to watch the Hunger Games movie just to like have a nice little evening to myself, reliving my teen years and being nostalgic. And then I spent like all night watching all of the Hunger Games movies. And honestly, you know what? They fucking hit more now than they used to. Like, I saw at least the first two in the cinema, and I read the books and liked the Hunger Games. Like, I wasn't like the biggest fan, I wasn't super into it, but like I enjoyed it and I liked it, you know? I liked it all the more rewatching as an adult. I heavily recommend a rewatch of The Hunger Games, honestly. And then it ties back to like my David Tennant thing, except it doesn't, because it's 28 Days Later, which doesn't have David Tennant in, but Christopher Eccleston is the same person as David Tennant to me. 28 Days Later is one of those movies that I rewatch like at least once a year and really love it. And I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go and pee. I need to pee so badly. I've been trying to put it off to do the video. I can't. Oh God. I'm back. Right, so yeah, 28 Days Later, honestly, I don't think about it that often, but every time I do think about it, I want to watch it, and I do watch it, and I'm like, oh my God, that was good. It's such a, like, it's horrible for a lot of it, but it's just so fucking well made, and like, it gives you so many emotions, and it looks so cool, and the soundtrack's amazing, and Christopher Eccleston saying, I promised them women. One of the most like genuinely like spine-tingling, crushing, just like horrible moments of my fucking life. Like, I saw this probably first when I was like 14 or 15 maybe, and like, I'm a big fucking Christopher Eccleston fan, so I was like, yeah, Chris, and then he's like, I promised them women, and I'm like, no, Chris. Then I watched the new Mean Girls movie. I'm not sure what I was expecting from a movie based on a musical based on a movie, but I was expecting something better than this. My main question, honestly, who the fuck cast Katie? the person playing Katie Heron, I'm sorry, she was one of the worst actresses I've ever seen in my life. There was just nothing to her. There was no emotion at any point in the fucking movie. Even like when she was singing, when she was acting, there was nothing. Nothing. Like I really like the writing wasn't great. I'm gonna say it. Like there were so many things that they like shoehorned in to have from the original, like the Fall for You, Glen Coco. It was Damien's parts. There were so many like of Damien's parts that were shoehorned in, and I was like, they're funny. I have nostalgia for the original. I don't really know why you did that, while leaving out some really iconic parts. Like either do it all or do it new, in my opinion. I didn't like it. And honestly, I think that I would have forgiven a lot about it if Katie Heron had been cast as someone likeable, someone talented, someone... I'm not even looking for talent here, just an attempt at acting. Just look like you didn't show up and get your hair and makeup done and decide to sit there and say the lines, you know? Like, just seem like you're trying to act, please. I don't know why I've absolutely torn into that woman. I'm sure she's lovely. I just thought she was shit in this film. And I think it's all the more obvious when everyone else was actually really good. Like, I really liked the casting of everyone else. I wasn't too sure about the two girls that are playing Gretchen and Cameron at first. So I don't know what it was about them. I just looked at like the three of them on the poster of Any Lap and was like, I don't know if you look like the cool girls, you know? Do you look like the Plastics? Like, I don't know if I'm getting the vibe, but they gave the vibe through their acting. Like, they were perfect. Like, Gretchen and Cameron were honestly probably my favourite parts of this movie. I did really like Damien and Janice. I didn't hate the changes they made to those. I liked the actors that played them. I thought they were good. You know, like, there was no shade on them from me. I just really liked Gretchen and Cameron. Then I watched Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And honestly, if you want a film that has like a sort of Saltburn vibe, but Saltburn is crap, I would watch Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. It's one of those like little like A24 horror films. I love an A24 movie, I'm gonna say it, as you're gonna see. But like, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't great, you know? It wasn't like, I'm not like, this is a really classic piece of cinema that everybody should see, I'm going to recommend to everyone. I definitely wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but if you've watched or want to watch Saltburn and don't think you'll enjoy it or didn't enjoy it, or like just generally are going to take my advice and not spend however long it takes watching it because it's a waste of time, I'd watch Bodies, Bodies, Bodies instead. It's such a similar vibe, it's a similar plot, but actually quite well done. Then I watched 8th Grade because I was on my little kick for like A24 movies. I think this was directed by Bo Burnham, the Inside Dude, and I have super mixed feelings about it because on the one hand, it captures that age so well. Like, even as someone who like, I didn't think I'd relate all that much because I didn't go to an American school. I wasn't in 8th grade, you know? I didn't have that culture. I didn't have those surroundings. I didn't think I'd relate that much. But it so perfectly just captures that feeling of like, not knowing who you are, not knowing who you want to be, knowing that everyone else sort of already thinks that you are someone but not feeling like you really are, the struggles of making friends and trying to be friends with like people who you shouldn't try to be friends with while ignoring people that are trying to make friends with you. Like, there was just so much to it that I was like, this is so deeply relatable and nostalgic for that time. I really liked that it was showing us like a realistically horrible time, you know? I feel like in a lot of films set with like that like pre-tween, like honestly like 10 to 17 age range of characters in movies, either like they're being so horrifically bullied like online and in real life, being jumped and having this done to them and having that done to them, and it's like, if someone has gone through that, I'm really fucking sorry, but I got bullied horrifically and it wasn't that bad, you know? Like, it was fucking awful, but not like that. Like, it seems very over the top. And if they don't do that, it'll be like a girl walking out of the bathroom and the other girls at the mirror being like and that's the bullying, you know? I feel like it caught that really good middle ground where it's like, people aren't necessarily actively being horrible to you, but everyone you try and speak to is very like, do you have to? It just caught like a certain type of awkwardness that I experienced in a really, really like heart-wrenching kind of way. And I won't lie, I found some of the movie actively boring. I found some of it had a lot of like secondhand embarrassment, but overall I did think it was a good movie. And it's one of those where it's again not necessarily like my kind of thing where I am going to love it, but I can really appreciate it for what it is. I did a With Nail and I rewatch. Watching Saltburn reminded me that Richard E. Grant exists, and then watching Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant reminded me that Paul McGann exists. And then I was like, I need to watch With Nail and I. It always hits. It's a classic. It's brilliant. It's a great film. If you haven't watched With Nail and I would heavily recommend it. When I met Paul McGann at Comic-Con, he told me about some of the filming process of it because they filmed that on tape, and I was getting him to sign my Doctor Who VHS tape. It was very cool. So yeah, I watched that. And then the final thing I watched was one that's been on my list for ages, which is Rare Beasts with Billie Piper and that guy that was in one episode of Ashes to Ashes and one episode of Doctor Who and was also in Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. I think I've put it off because I was scared of not loving it, because like all the reviews for it were really good and like Billie Piper was getting so much praise for it, and I love Billie Piper. So if I'd watched it and not thought much of it, I think it would have broken my heart a little bit, you know? So I've really put it off for like 3 years now, and I was like, I'm just gonna finally do it. Oh, stab me in the fucking face, Billie. Like, oh, that was just my kind of thing. It was so fucking good. It's one of those things though where I do wonder if I got the point of the film, or if I just I'm able to relate it so much to myself that I'm like, I loved this, when no one else has the same thing from it as I do. One of the things I really enjoy about media is that a lot of it can feel so extremely personal, despite it having been made like, you know, by hundreds of people for like so much money, and all these different people have worked on it, and it's out there for everybody to see, and yet it can still feel so personal and like just for you. So I don't want to go into what I got out of it, because it does feel very personal and intimate and like it's mine, you know? But I would heavily recommend it, especially for women. It's one of those things where I don't want or think that media should be in any way gendered, but I also do think that sometimes things are made to be relatable to a certain demographic or to be enjoyed by a certain demographic. And as much as we should all be engaging with lots of different types of media so that we think differently and have to like actually focus on different things, unpack different things, like how I think every man should have to watch the Barbie movie and then explain the point of it to a woman and then be told if he's right or wrong, quite frankly. Like, this is the kind of thing where I think men watching it could gain something like very special from it and like, you know, have a deeper understanding of something or another. But for women watching it, it just really hits, you know? And obviously there's lots of people that aren't men or women. You'll probably get something different from it. I don't really consider myself a woman either, but I relate to the experiences of women and womanhood because I'm perceived and treated as a woman. Okay, and that was the last movie that I watched this year, and for some reason the one that I have like the deepest thoughts about. It might just be that I've not processed it as much as the other ones to be able to be like, this is what it was about. Like, it's all still feeling based instead of thought based. I don't know, but I really enjoyed it. I've watched a lot of shit so far this year, I won't lie. A lot of it wasn't very good, but I enjoy watching stuff. I enjoy the bad stuff almost as much as I enjoy the good stuff, and I love the good stuff, so it works for me. It's just my little special interest thing that I do that makes me feel a bit better about life, okay? That's as simple as that. So, if you want to comment with things that you've watched so far this year, or even just like some of your favourite things, some of your recommendations for me based on the things I've been watching, I love getting comments. I don't really mind that much what we talk about, you know? If you want to see more content from me, you can subscribe here because I'm posting 3 times a week still, even as we go into February. I've started, that's a thing now. I'm doing that. And you can also follow me over on TikTok where I post daily, and I occasionally, sometimes every now and again, post over on Instagram or Twitter if you want to follow me there. If you want to donate to me monetarily so I can keep buying streaming platforms so I can keep watching stuff, you can donate to me over on Ko-fi or on Patreon. You can become a member and get early content from me and some other little bonuses. If you want to do that, there's no pressure. You don't have to. It's just an offer. Anyone can sign up to anything. You don't have to do it. I'm not telling you to. I'm just letting you know it's there as an option if you wanted to. I hate asking for money, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's me out for this video. So whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I will see you again in a couple of days.